Okay, so that is our picture that we left off with last time. Let's call this area A, B, and C. What does area A represent? Consumer surplus for, that's correct. So kind of reread the problem. For the type A. So remember we had type A, type B people here, and we were thinking about whether we can be successful at a price discrimination scheme. And what we came up with was, well, maybe we can charge $40 to the, or require a volume discount and get into, if you buy X amount, then you get the cheaper price type of concept, is what we were evaluating. Okay, so when we look at these schemes, we got to check whether something is incentive compatible. Incentive compatibility. In other words, will each type of consumer, we had type A, will each type continue to kind of self-select into the categories we want. So what Adam brought up was, if we make it too cheap, then these people are just going to buy it anyway. And we started looking at the numbers. So what I want to do is look at the consumer surplus areas. So, and we're going to look at forcing people to buy the 10 units at each one. So, so this was kind of the part B part that we were coming up with. We had equal to purchase 10 or more units. Otherwise, and remember, for the type B people, their demand curve was at 60. I didn't kind of redraw it here, but their demand curve was starting at 60. And so they're not going to be in the market. So we were trying to capture those people without losing out. And so we learned that at a price of 40 for them, they were buying the 10 units. Okay? Did you guys have that down, that little graph? That's what we did last time. We kind of showed each graph separately. This was the type B people. And the type A people is kind of what we have drawn. So how can I get those people in? So can we drop the price of 40, capture the 10 units without alienating the other people? All right, so think about this in terms of consumer surplus. If the Atom type, which works out good because they're the A type, so if the Atom buyers are thinking about this in terms of consumer surplus now, where Atom took us yesterday, we didn't have an answer for. What was your argument Wednesday? Do you remember?
It's like if you buy 4 or 5 at 70, it costs like $350.
Right.
Or you can buy 10 at
Okay. And my argument back to you was that we had the demand curve and that we couldn't tell what we were doing because of utility function. Maybe somebody, if they didn't get any utility from that, right? So we kind of went that direction. But we do have a little bit of information on utility. So let's think in terms of consumer surplus. So Blake identified that A is the consumer surplus here. If they are forced to buy 10, what is their appropriate consumer surplus at 40?
In B and C.
Okay, good. B and C, but there's more to the story. They're forced to buy 10. The dollar value, the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay and what they actually pay for each unit that they consume. So they're forced to buy 10. A, B, and C would be if they're consuming 8, but they have to buy 10. They're forced to buy 10 to get the deal. Below B and C? Nope. Good try.
Isn't that triangle as well?
What triangle? It is a triangle. I'll give you that much.
The small one, 8 and 10 and 20 and
8 and 10 and 20 and here? Okay. Nope. Close. We're getting close to a triangle. The difference between, so consumer surplus is the difference between price paid and the marginal benefit. Demand curve is the marginal benefit curve. You're getting close with that.
the other one?
What other one?
The only other one that's up
No. If you're talking about this one, the one that I'm thinking about isn't up there yet. But I want you to draw it in your head. What are we doing? Think about this. The difference between the price and the marginal benefit. What's the price you're paying for the 9th unit? 40. What's the price you're paying for the 10th unit? What's the price you're paying for the 10th unit? 40.
So it extends.
You have to buy 10, but the benefit is different. So here, the 5th unit gave you that much consumer surplus. You had $30 worth of consumer surplus on the 5th unit, but the law of diminishing marginal benefit, the law of diminishing marginal utility, tells us that the benefit derived from the 10th unit is $20 of satisfaction. Right? There's the triangle that we're missing. The price we're paying for the 10th unit is still $40. The benefit we're getting is $20. The price we're paying for the 9th unit is $40. The benefit we're getting is probably 30, I guess, if this must be a 1-to-1, right? So there's the benefit of from the 9th unit, and here's the benefit of the 10th unit, the consumer surplus. What's true about that consumer surplus? It's negative. So A, B, and C are the positive parts that we pick up, or the positive parts of the whole package, but then we've got this negative part. So now, getting back to Adam's logic here, is everybody okay with the negative part?
So if you're forced by 8, would you have a triangle to the 70th one? Like, I don't understand why you extended the line at 40.
That's right. So if you were forced to buy 8, then you'd be picking up B and C. Right?
Why does A not extend up like 10 did?
Yeah.
A... Oh, 8. Oh, because the price is 40. So the price paid for the 8th unit, remember the 8th, we got to be thinking marginal. The price paid for the 8th unit is 40. The benefit derived by the 8th unit is 40. So there's no consumer surplus on that particular unit. So remember what consumer surplus is adding up all of the individual. 1, 2, 3, 4. The benefit, when we look at the marginal benefit curve, the benefit from the first unit is 110.
So it's kind of like a ceiling concept. You want to make them by 10 because that sets the price at 40. So then that's why you're deriving a negative.
Right. So getting back to what I was saying to Adam earlier, these extra units give them no benefit. But why might they buy them still? To get the deal, and a little more precisely, you got more positive added than the negative that it brings. That's the marginal decision. So what am I adding in terms of consumer surplus by jumping on the deal?
And did we just get the price of 40 because when we saw earlier?
Yes, for the type B. Yep. We're going to try to jump. What we're trying to do is see if we can capture the B people without causing all the A people to get the deal too. Because it's not the profit maximizing thing to do if the A people start acting like B people. And that's what we're checking on. We're checking on exactly what Adam said, is that, well, geez, if it's only 50 bucks more, I'd buy it. But now we're kind of cranking that down here into surpluses. So with no price discrimination, we set the price at 70. And consumers get consumer surplus A. If we drop the price to 40, we're kind of asking ourselves, would it be rational for them to do this deal? Would it be rational for them to do this deal? Who can articulate that for me, whether using these areas now, whether that would be a good thing? What needs to be true? And then we're going to get into the calculation of it. But conceptually, graphically here, let's call this area L, because it's a loss. This area here. What would have to be true for the A people now to rationally choose to do the deal like Adam said? Well, they just buy them anyway. What would have to be true in terms of these areas?
Be greater than L. B and C would be greater than L.
Good. B and C would have to be greater than L. We already have A. So at the margin, all we're asking is, would they jump on this deal and buy the extra units? By buying the extra units, they're picking up B because these previous units are cut in price now to 40. So they're actually picking up B, C, and losing L. So for part C of this problem, if B plus C is greater than L, the A types will do it, which is what we don't want them to do, potentially. So we're checking for incentive compatibility. Is this pricing scheme incentive compatible? All right, so now start calculating some areas. Calculate area B, area C, and area L. Doing your geometry. Anybody get an answer yet?
It's a lot bigger.
It's a lot bigger, yeah. So, we get 20 for 195. So basically the net gain for the consumers is 175, and Adam's gut was right that the A types are going to jump on that deal. So do we want to do this pricing scheme? Is this a good idea for the business to do? No. They're not successful at doing that. So as the demand curve might be situated differently, it's possible that B and C wouldn't be as bigger than L. It's theoretically possible that would work out that way. Or think of it this way: what happens if I force you to buy 20 units?
Gets you more negative.
Right. So if we start to push this out, and maybe 20 is too big, obviously, but well, not really. You could go out further, but if we go out to whatever this number would be, let's see, 20. I guess I can kind of figure this must be 12, right? So if the deal is 12, now we've made area L this, right? And I don't know, what does area L end up being then? 1/2 of 40 times 4, 160. Half of that is 80, so we're getting closer, right? So you can see that that's our variable that's possible for businesses to do, is to keep increasing that volume. That's what Sam's Club does. Keep increasing that volume until we get the A types going to Walmart and the B types going to Sam's Club.
Now, why do we want the A types jumping on the deal? Because
We don't want them jumping on the deal.
Right, but why? Because we lose them buying at the higher prices.
That's
Is that
right.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
So the
They
deal-
do what Adam was
So we're trying
suspicious
to
that
get
they
type
might
B
do.
people to jump into the A equation somehow.
What's that?
We're trying to get type B people to get in with A.
No, the B people are out of the picture. These are our poor people,
Um,
likely. They can't afford the product at a price of 70. It's too expensive. But if you can give them a deal, then they get into the market because their choke price was 60. So they're out of the market. So again, we're trying to capture new buyers without alienating our old buyers. And so by thinking about this volume discount, maybe it's possible to pick up new people. Businesses struggle with this. This is a real life issue, right? I mean, this is how can I maximize profits? How can I get more people to come to my product? Your first gut feeling is to cut price, but then you're like, oh crap, if I cut price, then I'm going to lose all my customer base that's here. So how can I get new people in without alienating my old people? My wife kind of struggles with this with the horse business, especially as she was building it. You want to kind of cut new people or cut the board for new people. If you've got vacant stalls in a horse barn and you've got 25 stalls and 20 of them are filled with people paying $550 a month, how can I get a new person in? In theory, as a business person, I'd love to get them in for $300 because it's just empty stalls sitting. My marginal cost is very low, right? So if I can just get new people in, maybe I could cut my price to $400. But if I do that, then I got my other people ticked off or possibly disrupting the barn flow and people bickering that, oh, how come they get a deal and I don't, and whatever. So how do I successfully price discriminate? Well, she would possibly bundle lessons together. So if new people came in at $550, she would offer some 1 lesson a month or 2 lessons a month. She charges $45 a lesson. So if she gives them 2 to 3 lessons a month, she could charge board of $400. She just puts in her time for the lessons because she does the lessons. And now all of a sudden I've got that customer paying $550. I haven't completely alienated my old people. See what I mean? This happens with business all the time. That's why this stuff's kind of fun once we start thinking about it. It can be complex though. Okay.
Do consumers view dropping your price as the value of the good not being as high as it used to be when it was at a higher price?
Yeah, I think so. Yes. I mean, there is behavioral economics evidence that would suggest, people that signals something, yeah. Yep, and you might be changing things. I just heard something on NPR this morning on Pierre Cardin, that ruined them, not ruined, I don't know how bad off they were, I can't remember what they said on the thing, but back in the 90s, or maybe it's the 2000s, Pierre Cardin was this elite name brand, right, of what was it, cologne originally, or clothing or something, I can't remember. But then they started licensing out their name to everything, so that you had the Pierre Cardin blender, and the Pierre Cardin this, and the Pierre Cardin that. And so they got licensing fees from those, but it ultimately lowered the prestige of the name by putting it out on,
The more you see the name, the less the prestige.
yeah, diminishing. And it's a gamble on their part. They're maybe thinking, well, if we get it out there, you know, it was just a risk that didn't pay off. Okay, Jesse?
So since type A would jump onto that bandwagon, would that make them incentive?
Not incentive compatible.
Okay.
Correct. So yes. So therefore, the price scheme, the price discrimination scheme, is not incentive compatible. Okay, anything else on this problem?
Yeah, I'm frustrated.
Okay.
If we were to make them like 20 of them to get the deal,
Uh-huh.
the same anchor, it would be that triangle plus whatever rectangle comes from the rest of it.
Yes. So if we go out to 20, we would assume that the marginal benefit of additional units is 0 now. Now they're completely worthless to you. But you still might buy them, because area L now just grows to 20, and it looks like this. Is that what you're asking? Mm-hmm. Good question. So area L now is out to here. You're paying 40 and it's worthless to you.
And in fact, A wouldn't jump on.
Right. L gets too big, A buyers aren't going to do it. Now the question would be, are our B buyers even going to do it? Then we have to go back here and see, well, does that mean they're just not even in the picture either? Now we start playing their game of how big is their L versus their B, right, for each one. So we can start testing the incentive compatibility with each one.
And we just find where they're equal.
Yep.
That's where your deal is.
Yeah. We need to find whatever point there would be. Is there a quantity here somewhere that would make the B's buy at 40 and the A's still buy at 70?
I mean, in fact,
I don't know. With this problem, it depends on the demand curve,
right.
because it could be that at whatever point it works here, it doesn't work here, and then you'd be, yeah, there's not a solution then for it.
So in the real world, the consumer doesn't really know what the consumer surplus is right there. It's just a mental, it's just a mental way of, so this is an actual way of measuring it essentially. What they're thinking in their head.
Yeah, well, the economist would estimate a demand curve,
Yeah.
right? And so then you'd start taking the value from that. So,
But as a consumer, we just look at it and say, oh yeah, that's a good deal, or no, it's
Right.
not a good deal.
right. Yep. And so we would have done some estimates of what that demand curve looked like, which again are just estimates at the end of the day. There's a piece in here which did I talk to you guys specifically about this one? I did it in principles class. I think we were kind of busy at the time, so let me put the plug in now that you put that in there. This is a good spot to talk about it. A couple guys that I went to graduate school that I'm still pretty tight with wrote a paper on the value of the Minnesota Vikings, and it's in this book. If I can find it here. It was when we first did. So here, as I look, I can kind of talk. the Vikings were threatening to leave Minnesota,
Yeah.
and because of the not liking the dome. It's on page 122. And so they went out and gathered data on how much would you be willing to pay to keep the Vikings in Minnesota. And because there was a credible threat of them leaving, they felt like they were gathering data that was pretty meaningful. So imagine getting a survey, somebody would say, well, I'd be willing to pay, and what this was coming back to ultimately was whether the Minnesota should subsidize the building of a new stadium to keep the Vikings in Minnesota. The Vikings historically have lost some teams. So the Minnesota North Stars, now the Dallas North Stars, that, if you ever wondered why the heck is Dallas called the North Stars, being down south, they were in Minnesota. That was Minnesota's hockey team when I was little, living up in Minnesota. You heard of a team called the LA Lakers? Not too many lakes in California there, especially around the LA area. That's because it was the Minnesota Lakers. It was actually the Minneapolis Lakers, I think.
It must have been way.
Yeah, when it started, they left early on.
Because they've been the Lakers.
They've been in the LA Lakers for a long time. So anyway, Minnesota has, this all kind of builds into the story that they felt like they were getting some information because people have lost professional teams in Minnesota. And they kind of love their Vikings, and so they gathered this information on their willingness to pay to keep Minnesota there. And what they came out with was, on average, it was $571.60 was the average per person amount. And again, what they were doing is some people, when they gathered data, were willing to probably pay $5,000 to keep the Vikings there, right? The crazy Viking fans were willing to pay more taxes. And so they estimated the consumer surplus area for keeping the Vikings.
They'll be in a new stadium next
Yeah,
year.
they're doing the new stadium. I don't know how long the build time is, but they're going to be playing at the Gopher Stadium while the Homer Dome is torn down. Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't seen much of the details, but yeah. They'll be getting their new stadium. Okay.
So they're going to be it'll be outdoor build then, huh? Or are they going to build another dome?
You know, I haven't even heard whether it's retractable or it'd be nuts to put in an outdoor stadium. I went to the last game at the old Met. So have you guys been to the Mall of America?
Mm-hmm.
So where the Mall of America is where the old Viking Stadium used to be. And then that's where the North Stars played too, actually. It was the North Stars hockey arena, and the old Met was on the ground where the Mall of America is now.
So is that like where the amusement park is? That's kind of a big area.
The amusement park is within the, I don't remember how it lays out exactly, but yeah, it's enormous.
Are you talking about the Dallas Stars? That's a hockey.
Yeah, the Dallas Stars. Yeah, they don't call them,
Yeah,
that's right, they dropped off to North. Yeah, I guess I didn't think about that, Colby. Have they always been the Stars? Maybe they did drop the north part right away. Okay, that could be. That could be. All right, next problem. Since we're having so much fun here now that we got.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so,
Do I need to keep this up?
sure, it's fine.
Okay.
The V demand curve,
The B demand curve.
at a price of 40, on the demand is 10.
Yes.
Does that incorporate in income? Because I know like some people don't have the money to buy 10 units.
Okay.
Even though they would demand, like they would want that many.
Good question. Anybody got an answer for that? Anybody want to tackle that? So does that incorporate income? And I'll just take yeses or nos. In fact, I'm going to poll the whole room, so be ready. Actually, write your answer on a piece of paper because I don't want your answer to be dependent upon somebody else's. So, does the demand curve, so what is the demand curve there? It's P equals 60 minus 2Q. So that is the formula that we had here. And so Taylor's question is, does that incorporate income? So write down your answer. You can put it right on your notebook, and then I want you to hold it up to me. And all I want is a yes or no. Does this demand curve incorporate income? Yes or no? Okay. Okay, I think I see it. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so, yes. Yep. And everybody else said yes. So why? You guys tell me. You're correct.
Because it was 40 and 10 on the demand curve. Is that what that was? I can't remember how it laid out, but I can't remember if they actually demanded 10 originally.
Yeah, they did. And we saw the demand.
Yeah, the demand, right. This was on, yes, if you're asking, that point is on the demand curve, yes.
If it was on the demand curve, then I would say that they wouldn't demand 10 at 40 if they didn't have the money for it.
Okay. That's one way to state it. Anybody want to clear or add something to that? What he said isn't wrong.
Demand curve is the sum of all of the quantities at any given price that they want. So it takes into, like you were saying, it takes into account this price is what I'll buy, this price is what I'll buy.
Okay. Any other comments? Those aren't wrong. I'd like to see you be more precise with what assumption we have underlying this equation. Law of demand, principles of micro. An increase in price leads to a what in quantity demanded? Decrease, which is a complete lie unless you add what on to the end of that statement. An increase in price causes a decrease in quantity demanded? Ceteris paribus. Like what? Holding other things constant, like what? Income. Price of related goods. Population. Yep. Price of substitutes, price of complements. All that stuff is held constant. So along this demand curve, we have all that there. So now, if there's an increase in income, getting back to Taylor's mathematical brain here, I think, because I suspect you were thinking, well, there's a Q, there's a P, and I don't see an I in there, right? So the real equation might look like this, plus, I don't know, 10I, or let's go 0.10I, which is your weekly income or something, right? So there's the real equation. But what we've done is if we've held constant our income of $1,000 a week, then 1,000 times 10 is 100. This becomes a number, and it's embodied in that. See what I mean? It kind of disappears. So even though the real demand curve has variables like income and all that, we're holding those constant, price and quantity to have its influence. And remember that the real demand curve, by the way, is the quantity demanded is a function of price, income, price of related goods, population, what other variables. Those are all of our shifters. That's the real demand curve. I'm glad you brought that up. Okay? And that's what we're holding constant, of course, is that stuff. There was one problem we did back in chapter 2, I think, that was kind of similar to that. If income is this, it kind of showed a demand curve, but when we do income elasticities, we hold constant the price, right? So when we do the income elasticity, we say, well, how does quantity change when price is held constant at 40, price of related goods are held constant, population's held constant, all I'm going to allow to change is income. Income goes up by 10%, what happens to purchases? And then we determine whether it's a normal good or an inferior good. All right, anything else on that one? All right, take a look at the next problem here. We've got a fitness club. Fit Inc. is a health club that offers two types of equipment, weight machines and a swimming pool. There are currently 3 customers, Abe, Betty, and Chris. whose willingness to pay for each type of equipment per month is listed in the table below. So we've got this table here, and we got Abe, who's willing to pay $60 a month for use of the weight machines, but for the swimming pool, he's willing to pay $50. And then you got Betty, willing to pay $50 for weights and $125 for the pool. And then you've got Chris, $25 for weights, $140 for the pool. So who's the person that likes the pool? Chris. Chris is our swimmer, right? And Abe's our weightlifter. But each one gets some benefit from the other things too. Once in a while, Abe likes to swim or whatever to cool off from the big weightlifting session. I don't know. So the weight room and the swimming pool each have a constant marginal cost of $20 per month. In the case of the pool, the marginal cost is the price of water and chemicals used, while the marginal cost of the weight machines is the cost of cleaning and maintenance of them. Each customer is considering monthly access to each type of equipment, and the firm has to decide what type of membership package to offer the customers. What price will the firm charge for each product if it wishes to sell a health club membership to all 3 customers? What is the firm's producer surplus if it sells separate access to the weight room and the pool room at these prices? I think you can just think about this one. Let's really look at those numbers. So, and think about the question. What price will the firm charge for each product if it wishes to sell a health club membership to all 3 customers? Let's stop with that question. What price will the firm charge for each product if it wishes to sell a health club membership to all 3?
Did you just average them?
It would have to be the lowest. Okay. So which one's the lowest? So we got Abe at 110. So what if we look at just the weight machines? If we price it per unit. So the second part, what's the firm's producer surplus if it sells separate access to the weight room and to the pool room for these services? We still want all 3. What's the price for the weight room need to be to get all 3? 25, right? The lowest price. Again, we are tagging on the lowest price. So in order to get Chris to come in, we need 25. And for the pool? 50. Okay. So that's kind of some of the stuff we're dealing with. So what's the producer surplus? Producer surplus. We haven't done that for a while. So consumer surplus was the difference between the price consumers pay and the benefit that the minimum that they're or the benefit that they receive from it. So the height of the demand curve minus the price that they're paying. Producer surplus is the difference between what? Price that they're willing to produce at, what they're willing to sell at, marginal cost, right? They have to cover at least their cost at the margin, right? So the surplus that they get is the difference between the price that they sell it at and their marginal cost, whatever they're selling the package at. So if the package sells at $30, what is their benefit, or what is their producer surplus? What's the marginal cost in this case? Yep. What's the marginal cost of the weight machines? 20. What's the marginal cost of the pool? So the marginal cost of the weight machines is 20. The marginal cost of the pool is 20. So that just happens to be the same. What's that? Each one.
Oh, it says it.
Yep, each one. We kind of got to hang on those words. Okay. So then we start thinking about the prices that we need to offer. In order to get all three into the weight room, we have to have a price of weights equal to, what was it? 25 to get all three. And the price of the pool? 50. All right, let's just leave that problem because it's about time to go. And we'll see you guys at like 2:30, 2:45, 2:50, whatever, after some of you get out of class, and those of you who can come at 2:30 or so. What's that? Okay. Well, if you feel like you want to get together on Saturday, if you feel like you want to get together on Saturday or something, send a email.
What time is yours available on Saturday?
And I might be a little bit available on Sunday
We're
too.
gonna come to the football game and go to the concession stand and help out and keep it a little bit.
Oh, are you guys doing? Well, think about,
Popcorn, dude.
see if you can get a bundling deal going.
There you go.
Yeah.
So with like Saturday, like